and be, the 2008 Lions.
And Chris's update made me really, think this out even a little bit more. So this time next year, the Bengals are getting ready for their parade, and we're sitting here. And you're fine with taking that.
I have to take it, but I'd rather have
You'll
that.
You'll be filling in for one of these guys.
I'd rather
You'll be here, and you'll come on the air and say,
I'd
I'm happy.
rather have that than spend the last 2 weeks watching the everything else, and while my team's at home, or possibly they don't even make the playoffs. That I'd rather have to suffer through a parade with my team losing the Super Bowl than having to be, let's say, I don't know, pick your team, the New Orleans Saints last year. That's why.
Or you could, have hope.
Yeah. You could be Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, well.
You could be carrying Lombardi around with you.
See, but I don't know that. I could still have the hope, but the deal, I don't know that the deal's been made. That's the thing. That's the difference.
Well, so I'll get Raj on the horn and get the script right, okay?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're going to have to change
what
the
you're wanting
colors of the logo.
It's basically the plot of Bruce Almighty. You get to be God and all these great things are happening, things are going well. And then in the end, it ain't so great, is it?
No, well, that's kind of life as it is anyway. Chad in Ann Arbor, you're our 97 won the ticket.
Hey, thanks, everybody. So I know we want to talk about the NFL a lot, but the Wings are in a playoff push here. I think we should be talking more about the status of them, specifically with Husso going out last night, comes back from a long-term injury. He didn't look good. Trade deadline's approaching. We need to get some help behind Lyon on a really significant road trip. We got boat raced out of Edmonton last night.
You got boat raced in the third. You got boat raced in the third period. That's
if you look at the game totally, I watched the entire thing. There's room for improvement. We played
absolutely.
well, but all I'm saying is that with the goaltending, that's the scary part for me, right? We need somebody back there to give Lyon a break. Husso, he might go on IR, man. I don't like Reimer. I think with the trade deadline approach, and there's some guys out there who give us some significant backup power to Lyon.
All right, you want to talk fantasy world here, Chad? Do you think the Rangers, because Quick has been playing really well, would give up one of their, either Quick or Shesterkin? I don't. Do you? I mean, who else is out there that you can sit there and say, oh, my God, this guy's going to lead us to the, second round of the playoffs?
I'm not saying we need a guy to take over a line and lead us. I'm saying we need a guy to potentially step in down the stretch here. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the teams we're playing in this next road trip, I'm just really afraid that it's going to be a repeat of last year when we played those 2 games against Ottawa. Then all hell broke loose. The
problem is, yes, the goaltending might be a problem. You're right, but the defense, especially last night, they hung him out to dry a lot. The defense, we've addressed it with Coach Lalone. They at times are very easy to play against, and some of their defense, they need help. Defensively, Lalone told us last week. What he tells John, they need another. If he could have a wish list, a more versatile physical forward.
Yes,
to play multiple positions. All right, 248-539-9797. Some ticket text. Why would you make a deal with the devil to lose? How do you guys okay this topic? Ha 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 ha. No, don't care about going to the Super Bowl and losing. Would not make that deal. All right. Mr. Bobby said it best. If you ain't first, you're last. I honestly think every season when you don't. When is a Super Bowl? Win a Super Bowl is a failure, so why would you have guaranteed failure? If you know ahead of time you aren't going to win it at all, tank. Well, I don't know that. That's the thing.
But you made that deal.
I made the deal, yeah. I wouldn't take the deal, but for a petty reason. I don't want to guarantee the state of Ohio to get a Super Bowl before Michigan. Let's play it out. That's from Nick from Flint. Because to be the Lions and the Bengals.
Bengals, yes.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I understand it. I'm not sitting there going, oh, you guys are nuts or anything like that. I'm the one who's most people think is nuts. I get it. I do. Yeah. But 2 years ago,
vast majority.
3 years ago, you'd have never said I was nuts because the thought of the Lions going to a Super Bowl
still would never.
Well, you wouldn't. I'm talking because you're a player. You are a different mentality, and that's good. But I'm talking about the fans 2-3 years ago were going through the Patricia years and all the other crap. If somebody told you, hey, they're going to go to the Super Bowl but lose, you say, sign me up.
Stoney, of course. But then what happens? The passage of time.
Exactly. Things change. Yeah, goalposts are moved. I get it. That's
question was asked in 2024.
Right. That's why it got a lot tougher for me to answer that question the same way. But I just
seemed like you kind of flew right off the off the cuff on that one. Like it was a no-brainer.
No, I didn't say it was a no-brainer. It wasn't a no-brainer at all. I mean, it would have been 2 or 3 years ago, but now you have to think about it because they're a legitimate team. I mean, hell, I said they're going to play the Ravens in the Super Bowl. They could win it because who knows? Maybe the devil will die before the Super Bowl.
I don't even know how to ask the next question.
I know. Well, go ahead, ask it.
No, I don't.
All right, let me.
That happens. There's no Super Bowl, right?
Right.
Isn't that kind of the way that works?
I mean, if there's no devil, then it's all a Super Bowl.
Right. Everybody makes it.
You win a Lombardi. You win a Lombardi. You win a Lombardi.
Just follow the light.
Yeah, exactly. A question for you.
Okay.
Is this one more obvious than the last one for you? Well, John, who's the best player on the Lions?
So fortunately, you have a couple of guys that you could argue, but I think it's clear-cut that it's Penei Sewell. And it's Penei Sewell because he is the most dominant at his position in the NFL. And I'm not just talking about right tackle. I'm talking all offensive tackles. I think Trent Williams is one, and I think Penei Sewell, and these are all arguable. I think Penei Sewell is two.
So you, being a former right tackle, actually think the best player in the Detroit Lions is a right tackle? How predictable, but how accurate. It is very accurate. He is, and it's, in my opinion, with all due respect to Amon-Ra St. Brown and maybe Frank Ragnow and some of the other guys, it's not even close. He is the best player on the Lions by a long stretch.
I agree. And when you think about what there's some tough decisions coming up here in the near future. One is going to be how much, not if, but how much are they going to pay Penei Sewell? The tougher question is going to be, when do you move him from right to left? And you know, I mean, we hear this. We've heard this for pretty much Taylor Decker's whole career. Trade Taylor Decker, and it certainly has come up since they drafted Penei Sewell. I'm not sitting here going they've got to move on from Taylor Decker and move Penei Sewell over, but Penei Sewell is so dominant that I would much rather have him protecting Jared Goff's backside than anybody else, other than Trent Williams. But Trent Williams is not coming to Detroit anytime soon.
So you'd make the move now?
It depends on the resources that you're committing to the offensive line. Obviously, Jonah Jackson is a free agent. Graham Glasgow is a free agent. And I'm hoping that Graham Glasgow will be back. Vaitai, he gone. And so you've got to address the middle of the offensive line. Do you want to, I mean, how many resources are you going to direct towards the middle of that offensive line? And then do you want to direct any of it to the bookends?
I think for this year,
you probably don't.
Right. For this year, you keep the tackle situation the same, and you have to invest in the interior of the line for the chance that Glasgow gets more money and goes somewhere else. But more importantly, is the Ragnow health situation. You have to make sure you have somebody that on the games, and he's not going to play 17 games. I'd be stunned that he's not playing, that you have somebody pretty good who can, snap the ball to Jared Goff.
John, you've been pretty adamantly clear that Glasgow needs to be re-signed.
Yes.
He would play right guard, and he would be center if Ragnow can't play.
So ideally, he's not your right guard. Ideally, he is ready to back up all three places on the inside.
I hear you on that, but I think you say ideally, and you know that ideal situations are all not, you
realistic.
The more realistic options, what I said. And so I think what you're putting on the table here is we've all thought left guard will be where maybe they attack in free agency and they upgrade from Jonah Jackson. They don't keep Jonah Jackson. You don't. My guess is you're thinking they don't keep Jackson. But what
he's going to end up costing. Somebody's going to overpay him, and I don't want it to be the Lions.
What you're putting on the table potentially is to seek out a right tackle in free agency, and then Sewell moves to left tackle. Decker goes to left guard. Ragnow's your center. Glasgow is your guard, or maybe somebody better.
Or, you go out and sign a Robert Hunt, who is, and you have a complete new right side. So Jonah Williams is an offensive tackle. He's down in Cincinnati right now. He is a free agent. He's a former first-round pick. Never panned out as a left tackle, but is a very talented right tackle. So you go sign him. You move, just like you mentioned, Sewell to left, Decker to left guard, Frank at center. You have Glasgow to back him up, and then you get a guy like a Robert Hunt or somebody else along, that level
to play guard.
To play guard.
I mentioned what's his name, Zeitler, who plays for the Ravens.
Yeah.
Somebody like that. That's what they need. All right, 248-539-9797. Wojo will join us at 9:35. 97 won the ticket.
Hey, when it comes to managing your finances, you need a bank that gets you and is genuinely interested in your success. That's why I bank with First Merchants Bank. Whether it's your business banking or day-to-day personal banking, First Merchants Bank is 100% interested in helping you prosper. First Merchants bankers are attentive. They took the time to get to know me. They sat down with me, asked me questions. How many members of my family are there? How old am I? What are my goals? They took the time to ask me all of those questions and build a financial plan that fits my situation, and we continue to adjust it. When you make the switch to First Merchants Bank, you're also going to get access to their highly rated mobile banking app with innovative personal finance tools. Plus, they're deeply connected to the community's needs because it's their community too, and they volunteer and donate on a regular basis to local causes to ensure that we all prosper together. This is the difference of 100% interest in you. For a better banking experience, visit firstmerchants.com. That's firstmerchants.com. First Merchants Bank, helping you prosper. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
248-539-9797. That is the telephone number and the ticket text number as well. We were asking a couple things. Would you make a deal with the devil and guarantee in your mind that the Lions would make the Super Bowl but lose? And the reason we did that is because Sports Illustrated says Lions-Bengals Super Bowl next year. And or do you just let it play out and take the chance of them actually winning the Super Bowl? I'll be positive on that one. Or not making the playoffs or losing the Super Bowl or having a crappy season. You never know. And because I would just want to see my team get to the Super Bowl for the first time, and then I'll worry about them winning down the road, even though there's a chance, as we know, they may never get there again, never get there, period. And, of course, John being the player, among other things, it's basically all or nothing. And I get that, too. I'm not criticizing as well. Also, we're asking, is Penei Sewell clearly the best player on the Lions? We both actually agree on this. We say he is. And what do you do the situation on the left side in the future? Because you assume Taylor Decker is going to stay on the left side at least one more year.
Yeah, I'm not at this point in his career. I'm not going to ask him to move over to right. I don't want those guys to switch.
Correct.
I think the move, if you're going to ask him to make a move, and this would be, you don't want to completely overpay for your left guard because of his contract and what he's making. But the move is from left tackle to left guard.
Yes. All right. Here we have some ticket texts here. Do not extend Goff. Let him play it all out, his contract, and then use franchise tags until his replacement is ready to go. You need a mobile quarterback in today's NFL. Well, Patrick Mahomes is pretty mobile. Purdy is mobile. Josh Allen is mobile. Lamar Jackson mobile. You don't have to be a pure running quarterback.
Burrow's
anymore.
mobile.
Burrow. Everybody's Burrow.
Lawrence.
Except for Goff. Except for quarterbacks who are here. Goff or Stafford. They weren't really mobile. Although Stafford actually had more mobility than Goff.
Yeah.
Penei Sewell is absolutely the best player in the Lions. Agreed. Can't they swap sides? I imagine right tackle would be easier for Decker at this point anyway. Go.
No, because you've spent your entire life doing everything left-handed. And now all of a sudden you're going to switch. And it sounds so much easier when you say it out loud to just switch from side to side. Can it be done? Yes. Have we seen Penei Sewell do it? Yes. Penei Sewell is a very special and unique athlete, both in the way that he approaches the game, but also in his just physical traits. Not everybody was given the traits of a Penei Sewell. And so it is very difficult to go from left to right or from right to left. And you can't just sit there and say, and especially at the level that you would need Decker to do. I would much rather make that move from left tackle to left guard because all of the terminology, everything that your body is wired to do and your brain is wired to do remains the same. You're just simply moving one over.
And
wait a minute here. I am sorry, but I'm pleading ignorant to this. You've got to be on the exterior line to report, right? You can't be a guard and report.
As eligible, you mean?
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
you have to be end of the line of scrimmage.
So if he moves the guard instead of right tackle, then he'll never be able to report again.
Correct. I mean, you'd have to go unbalanced, and he would then have to be the end of the line.
Exactly. But he could not play left guard.
He could, theoretically, there are situations where you could play left guard, not have a left tackle. You would present as a tackle, but you would have an unbalanced line. So, yes, he could report. I mean, you're going to go down that rabbit hole, sure.
248-539-9797. Somebody called up earlier and was very worried about the Red Wings, their goaltending situation, because Husso came back after a decent layoff and got hurt early in the game. Lyon, who's been really, really good, but is a career backup, as Lalonde has said, and he did not play well. Granted, the defense, and actually Mo Sider in particular, did not play very well. McDavid had 6 assists.
They also played against the world's best player last night.
Correct.
So that's not overreacting.
And a team that's really, really hot. So I was looking, okay, do they need goaltending depth? Because if Husso is out for maybe who knows how long, season, whatever, and they're going to be in this, the Lions not going to play every game. A lot of people don't have confidence in Reimer. And obviously, Costa's not ready yet. Trey Augustine, who's the goalie of the future, probably still playing at Michigan State. There's a name out there now. He'd have to waive his his clause is no trade clause, and he is a free agent after this season. Marc-Andre Fleury.
Right. Yeah. I thought the caller's panic was a little premature in terms of saying this is going to be Ottawa all over again last year and this thing's going to snowball. I think the team's too good this year to have that kind of fall off. I don't think they're going to become sellers, but I do think they've got they've been exposed here a little bit right now. And it's simply because of having a reliable backup. Lyon is your starter, but to think that he's going to continue to play the way he's played, I think you're being a fool. And the perfect thing for this team to do is go get an experienced backup who may create a goaltender rotation in the playoffs where somebody could get hot. He's not going to be that expensive. He does have to waive his no trade. But the thing about him is he has been connected to a potential Avalanche or New Jersey trade.
Right.
Well, you're going to be potentially competing directly with New Jersey to get in the playoffs.
Correct.
And there's a little bit of a keep away factor. I do think that this is a big enough issue right now, if Yzerman doesn't address it, that it could barely cost them in the end.
Where are you on maybe Jake Allen of Montreal? He'd be available possibly. A lot of the other goaltenders that I'm seeing who might be, they all have longer deals down the stretch, and I don't think the Red Wings would want to do that.
This is a pure deadline rental trade for a 39-year-old goalie who's
a Hall of Fame goalie.
Yeah, but he's not that anymore.
No, I know.
He's played okay in Minnesota this
he's
year.
still
I mean, he doesn't have – he's a .900 save percentage. I mean, look, a guy that's been in the playoffs, you get hot.
Yeah. You never know. All right, it's time for news. Here's Heather.
Well, you probably know this, but don't believe everything you hear. So on an episode of his podcast, Paper Route, former NFL star Brandon Marshall made this really strange claim that Taylor Swift got Kanye West kicked out of the entire Super Bowl, couldn't even go to the stadium because he had bought a ticket right in front of her booth so that he could get on TV every time they showed her. So he basically said that Kanye's plan was just to basically photobomb Taylor Swift.
Right.
And that was his plan, but it never really came to fruition.
How
because
would
apparently
she even know that that's where his ticket was? Somebody in the ticket office saying,
sources.
Hey,
there's sources. And she apparently made some phone calls and he got the boot. But that's not the case because he was there. There was photos of him there wearing that face mask with his wife. Anyway, Kanye has since spoken out and says, you know what? All of Marshall's claims are completely false. They're fabricated and they're not true.
By the way, you hear the rumor about Kanye's ex? Kim Kardashian.
Kim Kardashian, yeah, who
Odell
she's dating.
Beckham Jr.
Yes, I heard that rumor. Wait, who knows? What, John? Eye roll?
It's major eye. He's so disgusted by this.
I don't care about girlfriend, boyfriend rumors.
Celebrity gossip.
Rumors.
It's exciting. Beginning on May 1st, you can get your hands on some Sunday Red apparel if you'd like to. That's Tiger Woods' new apparel line. So after 27 years with Nike, he has started his own line. He's teamed up with TaylorMade, and his gear includes, Tiger golf shirts,
looks
outerwear.
Good.
It looks fine. It's got the Tiger logo. Yes. There's other than red.
But you can't wear them. We can't wear the other colors on Sunday, or else you get thrown.
Because it has to be Sunday red.
Sunday red.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you have it.
Yeah, you could wear it on Saturday, but then you'd just be losing.
Correct.
You're right.
Well, you won't be losing on Saturday.
You might get confused
in
your
win
days.
on Sunday without the red.
Yeah. So two men are probably looking at a ton of fines, at least a hefty fine, after they got into a fight on a flight from Oklahoma to Hawaii. So a very, very long flight. This fight broke out on Monday on a Southwest flight. And of course, as soon as the fists started to fly, the cameras came out and it was all captured on camera. One of the men punched the other guy in the face multiple times. Who knows what they were arguing about because they were on opposite sides of the aisle. But crew and passengers were able to step in, pull the guys apart. When they did land, both of them were detained. No word if they were arrested or are facing charges. But following the flight, the U.S. Department of Transportation did remind flyers that they have a zero tolerance policy for any violent or unruly behavior on an aircraft. And if you do engage in such behavior, you could face criminal prosecution and fines of up to $37,000. So most likely they're going to be in some big trouble.
Yeah.
Finally, if you're a women's college softball fan, there is some big news out of Nebraska. Softball standout Jordy Ball will miss the remainder of the season with a knee injury. She did jump on her Instagram to kind of say that she will redshirt this year and then return in 2025.
big news because she was with Oklahoma for 2 years. They won 2 national championships hit the transfer portal. She wanted to be closer to home, Nebraska. And just like Caitlin Clark in basketball, she's selling out everywhere that she goes. That's the way Nebraska was. They were selling out everywhere they were supposed to be simply because everybody, whoever's a fan of soccer wanted to see her pitch.
More importantly, like DraftKings and FanDuel, are they going to refund if you bet Nebraska to win the national championship futures before the season? Are they going to refund those bets?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure there's an 800 number you could call.
Yeah, 800 call Costa.
Yes.
Cash the ticket with women's softball. Him and Mike. All right, 97.1 The Ticket. Coming up next, the last edition of Wednesdays with Wojo. Next, 97.1 The Ticket. This might be the first time I start to get a little emotional over what's going to happen the next few days. The Detroit Grand Poobahs are very upset because their music will not be playing anymore after this episode. The final episode of Wednesdays with Wojo. How are you, Bob?
Wait, I have to leave too?
Yeah, well, we discussed that in the break. I guess you weren't told.
No.
Oh.
Hello.
Okay.
I totally get it.
No.
The Detroit Grand Poobah.
Only from 9:35 on Wednesday mornings. We're still hoping you're going to show up at 6.
Oh, thank you. I plan to be. But, I do think it's and I know Stoney's going to get mushy as the week goes on, even though he's not going anywhere.
I know.
He'll be in this station. But, Stoney, look at it this way. I've been trying to make the kid feel better, Jansen. And the biggest benefit that I can see, he probably doesn't have to get up at 4:30 in the morning anymore. And,
Correct.
And he can sleep in longer with his sister. Oh, wait.
Yeah, great call, Wojo.
Yes,
And he's still got his A game. I mean, he's fine with the Lions just making the Super Bowl and losing next year.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The writing was on the wall for Stoney when the NFL went to 17 games. He no longer could pick them to go 8-8. I mean, that was the end.
8-1.
Yeah, that was that was killer's roll, right?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah.
Yes. All right. Before we get a little maudlin here, what do you think of the Super Bowl?
It was a fine little game there. I liked the fourth and the non-fourth down gambles. I do think, and I've said this before, I think you guys agree, Dan Campbell has changed the entire conversation in the NFL about fourth downs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all people – that and gamble or no gamble. Do you take the overtime kickoff or not? But beyond that, Patrick Mahomes did what he did. I didn't think he was great or the Chiefs were great all game long.
No.
It was actually quite a boring game for quite a while. But, of course, the final drive. But I'm not one of those ones who watched that game and thought, oh, the Lions couldn't beat either one of these teams, or what are the Lions are going to do in this stage at all. If anything, those two teams, including the Chiefs, looked more shaken by the moment or the stage or not completely prepared for it. That said, next year when the Lions are facing the Bills in the Super Bowl, it should be much better.
Oh,
Did I say that? Did I say that out loud?
I said Lions Ravens.
I said Lions Bills, so we're on the same page.
Oh, I didn't know that. Who did you say? Sports Illustrated said Lions Bengals?
Yes.
Yeah, but then they said losing to them. So would you take the same deal that Stoney took? That hey, if you could make a deal with the devil and promise that you are going to get to the Super Bowl but lose, or all other outcomes, and which one of them would be you have a chance to win it?
I would say this. If you asked me that question 3 years ago, I would take it.
Not
That's
asking
exactly.
you that.
I said the exact same thing.
I'm not asking you that question 3 years ago. I'm asking it to you on Valentine's Day 2024.
Right now, from my heart, deep in my Valentine's Day heart, I would say no, because I think they've shown that they without any deals with any devils, they could win the Super Bowl on their own merits. So, hell no, I'm not making any deals.
Thank you.
Please.
I get it. It's a reasonable response.
If this was out of nowhere, of course you take it. But no, I fully expect the Lions to be in position to get back to the Super Bowl. Oh, wait, they didn't make it this year. To get to the Super Bowl next year. Yes, I expect.
And they're one of the favorites. All right, Woj. To use a term that you actually should have trademarked, but you were the first person ever to use this term. After what we saw last night with Husso getting injured and a lack of goaltender depth, should there be panic in Hockey Town?
Oh, no. Edmonton has done that to many teams this year. Although through two periods, the Wings were right with it. The Wings, I won't say dominated, but pretty much the second half of the second period. But then that they need to go get. Why didn't Ken Holland, when he was here, get Connor McDavid for the Red Wings?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's unbelievable.
I know.
6 assists.
He made Sider look like Larry Murphy last night.
He spun him like a corkscrew into the ice. Oh, my goodness. But so, no, it's not panic time. Although, I mean, I give a mulligan to Alex Lyon because he was thrown in there, and obviously, and it was the Edmonton Oilers. So, no, I would not panic yet. But you don't want to come back from this trip with, I don't know, only one victory or something like that, because they're still in the playoff picture as we speak, although it's getting very tight.
If the Husso injury is serious, do you go after, we suggested, Marc-Andre Fleury or even Jake Allen, somebody like that?
Just to be a backup, obviously. Because, well, we assume, obviously. I feel bad saying this, but don't you keep sort of wondering, is the Alex Lyon thing going to continue? Is he really going to be this journeyman goalie who really does, at the age of 31, lead a team deep into the playoffs? I guess I just wonder about that, since obviously it would be a great story. So yes, I would. I do think I would go get a veteran backup of some sort.
How concerned are you that they're only 2 points above the cut line right now?
I know. I believe me. You know, my little sidekick there at 6 p.m., the little Rieger kid, he's already scoreboard watching. He was going through the contenders last night, the other ones close to the Wings, who they were playing last night, and I think they all won. So
pretty much.
So it has gotten narrow. But you know, even as of, you know, a week or 2 or 3, there's still odds-wise were people saying that the Wings statistically wouldn't be making the playoffs. I did check yesterday before the game. The Wings were at 78% chance of making the playoffs. After that 8-4 loss to Edmonton, I think it's down to 3%. That's weird the way that works.
Now you were in East Lansing over the weekend to see my favorite Spartan, AJ Hoggard, finally play a really complete game. Probably first one all season. Are we getting into this whole thing? Oh, it's almost March. Here they come. I just don't. Or do you think they're not good enough to make any sort of run?
Well, as you know, the calendar goes here. It's Harbuary, February, Izzo. Now, the Harbuary thing is over, apparently, for good, I think. Are they good enough to make – I mean, technically, to make a run in the NCAA tournament, I mean, technically, no. But that doesn't mean anything in the NCAA tournament and with an Izzo team. And I do think, and you're right, he hasn't been good enough. Talk about A.J. Hoggard. But if he is that way and he is just using his strength and powering to the basket and getting shots for others and not turning the ball over, I mean, that's beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's the key. I mean, it's the key to any college basketball team, but for an Izzo team, for your senior point guard to be leading the way. He's a nice kid. He's a little enigmatic, a little hard to read sometimes. I think that drives Izzo crazy. But they found a way before with players like him. I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't think I would bet on it this year. I just not a long NCAA run.
So today is obviously a very special day.
Very special.
How are you celebrating the reporting of the pitchers and catchers?
Oh, yeah. It starts today down in Lakeland.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been making a bad joke, and I sort of feel bad, so I'll repeat it one more time and then close Wednesdays with Wojo out forever with it. But today is the day for the Tigers that catchers and injured pitchers report for spring training. And that's very mean, and I don't mean it to be mean, but and they are healthy, hopefully. We'll see. I mean, working their way back like Casey Mize. But if, in fact, their pitchers are healthy, stay healthy, they could go, I don't know, 6 deep in a starting rotation with other options. There is, at least pitching-wise, I think, legitimate optimism. beyond that, I don't know. I'd probably go 8-8 for the Tigers. 8-8.
In their first 16.
Woj,
And then 81-81. No, not really.
Woj, I want to thank you for being a staple of the morning show in different incarnations. Thank you for being the favorite thing. My daughter, Jessica, just loves when you come on. She loves you. Your Uncle hairstyle. Don't ask people why they call him that, but it's a ridiculous thing going way back. And you're the best. You're a great friend, and we will do this again somewhere, somehow.
Yes.
Here
and
at 97 won the ticket. We'll do something
deal.
together.
Yeah.
We will do something together.
Well, of course, and I correct you. No, you're the best, Stoney. The Godfather is the best, and obviously, I don't want to make it maudlin either because Stoney's going to be around.
Yes, I am.
I might even let him sit in Rieger's chair. I'm not sure if you
absolutely.
want
When I get
to.
back from Florida, I'll definitely do that.
Does this mean he'll turn into a troll?
Yep. Stoney does have troll-like qualities, doesn't he? A little bit.
Not
Not
Rieger.
nearly
No.
like Rieger.
No.
No, oh, God.
Rieger's
There's nothing like Rieger.
height is more troll-like than mine. 'Cause he's a little shorter, but other than that,
He is a little shorter.
Yes.
He wears those curled-up shoes.
Yes,
he does
indeed.
that as well. People don't realize it.
all right.
But Stoney, I'm going to go bury myself in a box of chocolates now. Since you saddened me.
Okay, well, it's Valentine's Day. You should eat chocolates. There's no doubt about that.
Go turn the Christmas lights on.
And hopefully I'll talk to you. Hopefully we'll talk to you on Friday.
Okay,
All right?
cool. Absolutely.
All right. Wednesdays with Wojo, the last time here. Stoney and Jansen, 97 won the ticket.
Hey, Planet Fitness is the home of the judgment-free zone where anyone, and that means anyone, can feel comfortable and work on their fitness goals, and that is exactly what Planet Fitness wants to make this available. A welcoming gym, squeaky clean gym, and as a former
talking like me,
yes, as a former gym owner, I know how hard it is to keep clean. They do a tremendous job of that. It's a judgment-free zone. If you're short on time, that's no problem. You can get a full body workout in just 30 minutes in the Planet Fitness 30-minute Circout, and if you want more, you can go and upgrade to the Black Card membership with amenities such as unlimited use of the Black Card Spa featuring hydro massage chairs, total body enhancement, and more, along with access to over 2,400 locations. I've already used a handful of them here in Metro Detroit, so they're there and available. And right now, it's the Big Fitness Energy Sale at Planet Fitness. Join today for only $1 down and $10 a month. This is a deal you certainly don't want to miss. And you want to find out more? Go to planetfitness.com.
Final 8-4. Wings back in action against Vancouver tomorrow in British Columbia. That's right, British Columbia, the home of the Canadian Football League Defensive Player of the Year for the BC Lions, who's now a member of the Detroit Lions.
Was it Mathieu?
Mathieu Betts.
Mathieu.
Yes. That's the way it's spelled. I don't know if he's French, it would be Mathieu, like Mathieu Schneider and Mathieu Dandino, former Red Wings, but we could just call him Matt. How about that? Matt Betts.
Yes.
Yes, he's going to help with the Lions pass rush, hopefully. But as you pointed out, it's not just there's an extra guy and the field's bigger in Canadian Football League. They have other, and there's only
other
3
rules.
downs.
Yeah, there's other rules. I mean, you can't line up, defensive lineman can't line up, a yard from the football. Their line of scrimmage is actually a yard thick. So whenever you are starting your rush as a pass rusher, it's basically like you're a wide rusher all the time. You get to start with a running start and, hey, you're going forward, I'm going backwards. Let's figure this thing out. And they have, yes, that too.
Yes.
That too. Yes.
Speaking of LeBron, he and the Lakers beat the Pistons last night. But there's a story that's breaking now that's very interesting. The Golden State Warriors made a bid to get LeBron James at the trade deadline, offering up a package. It doesn't say who was in the package, but LeBron and the Lakers decided that they will stay where they are.
Okay.
It's just, it came out of nowhere. I was kind of stunned by that. And there's one other thing I do want to mention here that if I can find it, here we go. We don't need the stat of the day music, but this just tells you something about Patrick Mahomes. I'm just going to read this. The big cat from Barstool PFT, he posted it, but it's from some NFL stats guy who's very highly respected. Since 2001, there have been 125 drives in the NFL postseason where it was at least the fourth quarter and under a minute left to play, and the team on offense trailed by 7 points or fewer at the start of the drive.
How many? 110 of them?
125.
125.
These are your standard clutch moments for a football team, do-or-die drives that win and lose critical games. Out of those 125 drives, only 40% of them saw the team on offense pull off the magic trick and get the points they needed. Some quarterbacks are obviously pretty good. Tom Brady, 5 for 11, 46%. Drew Brees, 3 for 6, 50%. Patrick Mahomes, 7 for 7. It's ridiculous.
He's good.
He's good. Yes,
he's good at football.
He's very good at football. He's unbelievable. It's like
or how else do we put it? He's a football player.
Yeah, he's a
football player.
He's a
quarterback.
It's like the GOAT has just been born right now. He's not the GOAT yet.
No,
right?
But you're watching what could be the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Incredible. And the similarities with him and Brady, not the way they play, it's just the supporting casts, for the most part, are similar. Yes, Mahomes had Tyreek Hill for a few years. Brady had, Gronk and Moss. Mahomes had Kelsey. And they didn't have a lot of great players around them. They had good offensive lines, not great. They had good defenses. Now, this Chiefs defense is probably as good as any defense the Patriots had.
Yeah. And I mean,
close.
Tom had
different era.
A much better offensive line throughout the course of his career.
Yeah,
and some were better than others, but he never had he never had the mobility to be able to stand up. And that's where they've somewhat put the ball.
You like chocolate pudding?
I do.
He made Tyreek Hill irrelevant. He's got 2 rings without him and 1 with him.
Right. And the only time he didn't win was when he was just running for his life. And they've at least given him a minimal offensive line.
I just think the greatness we're seeing with him, like the stat that blows me away with him is he is 15-1 in the playoffs in games against QBs not named Brady. That's crazy. 15-3 overall is crazy. And then you just look at the greatness in sports right now, like what McDavid did last night.
I know.
4th fastest to 600 assists. The other 3, Gretzky, Lemieux, and Orr. I mean, you need justification that he might be one of the greatest players ever. That's it, to be in that club.
Right. But does he have to, we'll get this another day, maybe, but does he have to win a Stanley Cup? Yeah, to be in that category.
Sure.
with Lord Lemieux and Gretzky. Carson Anderson are coming up next. Gators still under the weather. What's up, Doug?
How we doing?
We're doing good. You?
Excellent.
How does the Karsh family celebrate Valentine's Day?
By dodging bullets. At some point you get to, I think, as a couple,
Yes.
it's not. Now, did I get her flowers? Yep.
All right, we agree.
And
Flowers and a card, right?
flowers and a card.
There we go.
And typically it's just an excuse to go out to dinner, do something
Sure.
like that. But it's a Wednesday, which is not a great going out night.
No, save it for the weekend.
Save it for the weekend.
Yeah.
We may. We'll see. If I had done nothing, I don't think it would have
Right.
mattered.
And would you have
Yeah.
cared if she didn't get you a card?
She didn't give me anything.
Okay.
I don't care.
Me neither.
Yeah,
I get a
no,
card.
dudes
usually.
don't care, yeah.
I'll get a card.
There is I just don't want to fail any test. Like I'm
It's
not
the
looking.
pressure, right?
I'm not looking to have a 4 point. I'm just looking not to fail.
Yes.
And so if I had done nothing, I don't think it would have registered either. I really don't. But
What do you got on the show today?
we do have a Valentine's question we'll get to right out of the gate, and we are going to do something we have avoided forever. We're gonna talk some mock draft.
All right. I should have brought in my mock turtleneck. 97.1 The Ticket. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.
All right, Carson Anderson, Gator out today, still fighting a head cold. So good to be with you on a Wednesday in Detroit. Sun out is shining. Kang, by the way, I found 9858. So we're all good there. Live read copy. How's everybody doing today? Going to be a busy day here on the program. Yep, a little tired. Stayed up late. Watched some Red Wing puck and some Piston basketball. Fell asleep. Woke up. Piston game was over. Went to bed. Didn't find out this morning what happened. Red Wings, watched that, and that sucked. I really wanted, look, I mean, I'll just say this about the Red Wings, and we'll get into it a little bit more in depth. We've been doing this for years. Anytime you're watching a team that's battling towards something, they're building towards something, you see promise. Whenever that happens, you're kind of looking for that moment that you can identify as the moment they gelled and were ready to take the next step. And watching the Red Wings, I talked a lot about this 3-game set coming out of the All-Star break, Vancouver, Edmonton, Vancouver, where you're playing, contenders in the West and send a message, and that's the moment. You're hoping to identify that moment. Now, I'm not saying they still can't. I mean, if they win at Vancouver, then, yeah, that's significant. They could finish out this West Coast trip in a significant way. But last night didn't feel like a moment of confirming that they're taking that next step when they give up 8 goals.
You were ready to explode, weren't you, though?
I was. I
like if the Wings won that game last night.
Yeah, I mean, I was ready to kind of raise the eyebrow and go, oh, what's going on over here? What's going on over here?
I feel like it would have been more than that.
It might have been.
And that's okay because I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, but they gave up 8 freaking goals, man. 8. 8.
Dude, Edmonton going for 2 was crazy.
It was a bit much.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
A little bit of Dan Campbell in him.
Connor McDavid with the touchdown of assists. 8. It's the opposite of announcing your presence. Hopefully they pull it together. Just one game. Bounce back tomorrow at Vancouver. All right, it is Valentine's Day. Good luck. Don't F it up. Whatever the expectation is, feel free to exceed it by one step. There's not much of an expectation when you've been married for as long as we've been married, but is there no expectation? I don't know. I got her some flowers and a card. Had some time yesterday where she wasn't going to be around, so you do that. But, King, what about you?
No, I'm with you. I haven't been married as long as you have, but we've got to the point where we got the 2 little ones that it just exhaust the crap out of us every day. And if we just make it to the end of the night and see each other,
yeah,
that's like a victory formation, right? Kids are asleep, victory formation. That's it. And so we'll talk about this a little bit later. But so my wife has she has a work trip and she leaves today, so I'm not even going to see her tonight. So I left this morning and said, by the way, happy Valentine's Day.
Nice.
And people are going to give me crap. No, I didn't get her anything. She didn't get me anything. We're totally cool with it.
You guys are dribbling out the clock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 4 corners. All right.
I hear you.
Where'd you hide the flowers, by the way?
So, empty bedroom. We have 2 kids off at college. So, put the flowers in a vase. A vase? I don't know. And on the bedside table of our son's bedroom. Wrote up a card, nothing too deep. But I figure card's a necessary thing, and more than just signing it, say something nice. I said something nice. So anyway, sentence or 2, and then leave it for her in the morning. So it's a victory is mine. I shouldn't say that. I should say failure is. I avoided failure, so I'm happy about that. So Valentine's Day. Here's what we want to do today, and look forward to texts and phone calls on this. In the last year, who in Detroit sports have you fallen in love with? Who have you fallen in love with? And it's got that new relationship feeling, that. And you're so fired up about it. You just entered a new relationship. You've just fallen in love with somebody in Detroit sports. Detroit, Michigan, Michigan State, whoever you want. Who have you most fallen in love with, and you can say it's happened in the last year? And conversely, who have you most fallen out of love with? Somebody a year ago you say I love, and a year later you're like, I'm not so sure anymore. You could see a budding relationship, somebody that's won you over, and they now are your sports Valentine. Who would it be in Detroit sports that you have most fallen in love with and most fallen out of love with? Kang and I brought up a couple names in the office before the show started. We'll see if anybody agrees or brings up the same names. The way we'll do this, phone calls 248-539-9797. Ticket text to the same number on this Valentine's Day of 2024. Who have you most fallen in love with in the last year? Who have you most fallen out of love with the last year. Get them in. We'll read a whole bunch coming up and take your phone calls at 248-539-9797. You heard in the crosstalk, mock draft today. This has been refreshing. Gator and I have done the show. Gator knows the exact day of the first show we did together, but it's 18 freaking years, which is unbelievable. I can't believe it's been that long. But I think that we've, for the first 17 by now, we've done mock drafts, man. We've done tons of mock drafts. We've looked at, and look, the mock draft, if you're new to the show, it serves a purpose for us, and I think it's a useful one. Every time you get a different mock draft, your team, whatever your team is, and here are ours, obviously the Lions, presented with a different field of players to choose. And nobody nails it, right? Nobody knows exactly how it's going to go down. But what I think is interesting is looking at each scenario and saying, okay, under these circumstances, who would you choose? Who would you choose? So today at 10:35, we're going to do our first mock draft discussion here on Carson Anderson. So be prepared for that. If you want a bit of a preview, hopefully you follow us on Twitter at Doug and Gator 971, and you can jump in there and answer the question we threw out there. It's a little bit of a preview of what we'll get into today at 10:35. Again, that's on Twitter at Doug and Gator 971. Today's the day, pitchers and catchers report. There's a degree of excitement. I got 4 things I'm watching for this spring training that I think are significant. So we'll touch on that as well. So as you can see, it's going to be a busy day here. Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Open lines, of course. We got the Valentine's topic. Who did you most fall in love with in the last year in Detroit sports, and who have you fallen out of love with in Detroit sports the last year? We'll get to some of your phone calls and feedback on that. NFL, mock draft talk, Lions related at 10:35. Doug Karsh, Gator out today. It's Carson Anderson here on 97.1 The Ticket. Hey, bet the NBA with a no-sweat same-game parlay from FanDuel every Thursday with TNT Thursdays. It doesn't matter if you're new to FanDuel or already have an account. You get bonus bets back if your same-game parlay doesn't win on any NBA on TNT game. NBA same-game parlays are the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance to score a bigger payday. However you want to play, just head to FanDuel.com/Doug to bet the NBA with a no-sweat same-game parlay with TNT Thursdays. That's FanDuel.com/Doug. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in Michigan. Minimum 3-leg parlay required. Refund issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Maximum refund is $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help. You can do one or the other or both. It's Valentine's Day. Who in the last year have you fallen in love with in Detroit sports? And who have you fallen out of love with in Detroit sports? I got one for both. Kang, you got one for both? I know you got one for who you've fallen in love with. You got one for both?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So what we want is your answers, and if anybody matches who we say, we will mention it. Talk some NFL, mock draft stuff a little bit later on this hour for the first time. 248-539-9797. Gator out sick today. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Let's go to Michael. You're on 97.1 The Ticket. What's up, Michael?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you.
Too much feedback from my radio?
No, you sound great.
All right.
Yep.
So I love your show. I listen to it every day.
Great.
And so I have to just ask that you let me get this statement out before you make any comment negative about my past. I'm a Buckeye fan. I always have been. Grew up in Ohio, grew up in Cleveland, Woody Hayes, all that good stuff. So I've hated the Michigan football team since I was a kid, and I still really do. I rooted for them through the Big Ten.
Don't worry, my man. Feelings mutual.
All right, cool. So, okay, that's cool. So I've always hated him, so I didn't like Aiden Hutchinson. I could give a rat's ass about him. I was like, yeah, there's another failure from the Michigans. But I love the guy. He's an absolutely phenom, young, great young player, and I've fallen in love with him. And that's the love part. The falling out of love with, and I'm not hating on him. I just really don't care about him anymore. Don't want to go watch him anymore. The Detroit Tigers, they've really lost my affection for going to see a baseball game, drinking a beer, having a hot dog in the nice warm sun. I don't care to see that anymore with them. They're lost.
So there's a couple things here. One is I think a lot of us that are maybe a little bit older can relate to a degree, although, I mean, you're an Ohio State guy who's also a fan of the Lions and Tigers, it sounds like. It's a little different for us, but I don't know if there was an athlete more beloved than Chris Spielman when he came up here. I mean, I think boy, talk about a guy that won over Detroiters. That is somebody
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Spielman is, I don't want to say a god around here, but he is about as respected a Detroit Lion on all those teams that didn't win. Detroiters love Chris Spielman, and having interactions with him, I love the dude, not just the player. I love the way he approaches everything. I got Spielman stories. Yep. One of my favorite interactions for one of my kids was when my oldest met Chris Spielman in a booth at UConn. I'm doing a pregame show, and Spielman comes over looking for Frank Beckman, and I'm on the air, and he's waiting for me to finish and spends 5 minutes talking to a 13-year-old kid standing in the booth. He was awesome. As far as the Tigers, Michael, there might be a chance for them to win you back this year. They could be interesting.
I would hope so.
They could be interesting. So, hey, thanks for the phone call, 248-539-9797. Let's go to Ben. You're next on 97.1 The Ticket. Hi, Ben.
Hey, I'm here. How you doing, Doug?
Doing great.
Yeah, as far as falling out of love or falling in love, my 89-year-old mother just loves Dan Campbell.
Oh, yeah?
And she doesn't know a thing about football, but every time he's on, we make sure that she sees it. She loves him. As far as out of love, I don't have one.
You don't have one. That's fine.
Yeah.
Ben, we expect that we would get some Dan Campbell response today.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all relative to how you felt. Like to answer this question, it's how you felt about somebody a year ago, and then in the last year, Dan Campbell's approval rating in Detroit was probably high and just as skyrocketed anyway.
Right.
So,
I just, I know my mother's never watched a football game, but she just loves the way he carries himself, the way he talks. She thinks he's handsome. She just loves her some Dan Campbell. So I just had to say that.
There you go. Ben, thank you. 248-539-9797.
I think she might literally be in love with Dan Campbell.
Sounds like it.
She thinks he's handsome.
David Warren writes in, fallen in love, Penei Sewell. Fallen out of love, Cade Cunningham.
I feel like Cade's going to be a name that pops up a decent amount. I don't know if it's deservingly necessarily, but I mean, the Pistons organization is just, they haven't been good this year, Doug.
Yeah. So, apathy, right? Apathy is a bad thing. And I kind of feel like Detroit is apathetic towards the Pistons. Cade has done nothing between injuries and this team struggles, I mean, Cade still is very promising. I don't want to discount that, but he hasn't done much to kind of take some steps forward. There's a feeling out process with the combination of players that they have on the floor. So I'm going to continue to be patient. But I got you. Adam in the car says, last year I've fallen in love with Jared Goff, fallen out of love with Ville Husso.
So he got my in-love guy. Jared Goff.
Yeah.
So we were friends. We were in the friend zone to start the year. It's not like I didn't like the guy or anything like that. We were just, hey, it's platonic. We talk, we text every now and then. This past year, I fell in love with him.
Did you?
He won me over, and he won a lot of people over, I think. Maybe I was late to the game, late to the party, whatever, but it took me a little longer to realize how pretty he was, how much he brought to the table.
Yep.
But he proved it. 2 wins, hosting a playoff game. Yeah, give the man his extension. If they don't, I'll still trust Brad Holmes, but he's totally earned my trust, Jared Goff.
Yeah, look, I imagine we'll see that name a lot today as, he absolutely has won some people over. Feedback, John and Trenton. In the last year, I've fallen in love with Kane and DeBrincat, and I've fallen out of love with Ville Husso. Ooh, here's an unnamed texter. I've fallen in love with Sam Laporta. And Jamison Williams. I've fallen out of love with Cade Cunningham. I've fallen in love with Sam Laporta. Fallen out of love with Dylan Larkin. I'm surprised that name's on the fallen out of love list. Without a doubt, I've fallen in love with Jared Goff. Everything he's done has been right. He's not perfect. He's all mine. Also, I've fallen out of love with the Pistons. That's from Bruno. Yeah, Pistons are making it tough. Fallen in love with Jahmyr Gibbs. I've fallen out of love with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That's from Josh from Flat Rock. C.J. is, I don't know, man. He's an interesting case. I said it yesterday. I'll say it again. I will not be shocked if he's back. I will not be shocked. And I could understand why. His season was robbed from him by injuries. But if you liked him a year ago, the only reason not to like him now is the emergence of a Fatu Melifonwu that has made him expendable. But you could afford all 3 this past season. You can afford all 3 this season. Now, if you need the money for something else, I get it. But
do you think he'll be back because the Lions really want him back? Not that they wouldn't want him back. Of course, they're not going to sign guys they don't want. But do you think the market might be soft for C.J. Gardner-Johnson? I would love it if he came back, just because I think depth is important. To have 3 safeties that you can rotate, but as long as he's willing to accept that role.
Yeah, if you're talking about affordable contract and soft market and happy and wants to be part of it, no matter what his role is, yeah, I think he will be back. I mean, there's a lot of ifs there, okay, but I hear you. Falling in love with Jared Goff, falling out of love with Matthew Stafford. Time to move on now, buddy. That's from Sean in Westland. I mean, look, the Stafford thing, that got uncomfortable and predictably so. I'm going to give Stafford a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. I'm a little worried that he had this love affair with Detroit when everything was going great with him. He could say glowing things, but then when things got good for us and worse for him, he seemed a little bit bitter about it, but we only see snapshots in time, and sometimes that's not fair, but Tony and Metamora, Jared Goff. I did not like him at all. Now I feel like a fangirl. I'd fangirl out if I met him. Sorry. I've fallen out of love with the whole Pistons existence. They mean nothing to me. I've fallen in love with Alex Anzalone. Just in the last week, the article in the Players Tribune solidified that. I've fallen out of love with Troy Weaver. That needs 0 explanation.
There's my out of love, Troy Weaver. I was a big Troy Weaver guy. Believe in Weave, the whole thing. I actually think Troy Weaver is a pretty good scout. He can scout talent. I think the GM, Troy Weaver, not so good. Putting together a roster that can win basketball games. And I think that's a different skill set than just identifying talent. And he hasn't done it, and it sucks because like I said, I was in love with the guy. Now I'm out of love. I don't feel it anymore, Doug.
Well, Joe at work got your fallen out of love guy with Troy Weaver, and he got my fell in love with guy with Alex Anzalone. And yes, it's the way he played on the field, which I liked a lot. I don't know that I have ever read, like the Players Tribune's been around for a while, and I've read a lot of stuff that the players have written. I think Alex Anzalone's might be my all-time favorite letter penned on that website because he conveyed belief in this team and the future and a want to be here and to win and an appreciation for this town and its fans. But then he really took us inside how much this hurt and how it kind of manifested itself in his real life. And then when he tweeted out during the Super Bowl, not going to lie, this is tough, because I think one thing we always want to hear, and I think unrealistically we want to hear that all our players ever do is work out, watch film, sleep, and eat healthy. That's all we want to hear they do around the clock. Another thing we want to hear is that they care as much as we do. Like they care as much as the fan cares. And they don't always convey that. They don't always convey that. And they don't, obviously, certainly holding them to the expectation of work out, watch film, sleep, recover. That's not realistic. But Alex Anzalone certainly has given off a belief that he cares as much as any fan cares. It matters that much to him. We'll get to more of these. 248-539-9797. Also coming up, first look at a mock draft today at 10:35. Doug Carr, Scott Anderson out sick today. 97.1 The Ticket. It's Car Skater out sick today. It's Carson Anderson here on 97.1 The Ticket. 248-539-9797. So we're talking about the Valentine's Day and who in the last year have you fallen in love with in Detroit sports and who have you fallen out of love with in Detroit sports. And here's the interesting one that I was thinking. Well, hold on. Let me get to all these. I'll read it. But Jeff and Allen Park says, I've fallen in love with Brian Branch. I've fallen out of love with Cam Sutton. I want to break up. I'm not giving up on Cam Sutton. And the reason is I think he was miscast or in over his head a little bit. Still think he could be a useful player if he's replaced by somebody better than him and he doesn't draw the other team's best receiver. I get it. There were struggles. In fact, what was funny is early in the year, they didn't face a who's who of great wide receivers. As the season went on, it got tougher and he started to get exposed a little bit. But it goes to show that in the right matchup, he can be useful. Is he a CB1? No, he's not. But don't underestimate his ability to help this team out because I think he can. But we won't, they have to upgrade that position. I'm not sure how they do it. If they're not going to make a splash in free agency, I mean, they might. We talked about the possibility yesterday. Something's going to happen unexpected. They could explore a trade, getting a guy in the draft that can come in and start right away. I mean, we can sit here and say if anyone can do it, it would be Brad Holmes.
Brian Branch came in, started right away. I know he's a slot corner.
Yep.
And don't underestimate and rule out the development part.
Yep.
Right? I mean, Brad Holmes has said it many times now. You got to let these guys develop. Give them a couple years, get their feet wet. Let the coaches get their hands on them. I don't know if Chase Lucas is that guy or Gilmore or someone on the roster, but it's a possibility is all I'm bringing up. Because you're right. Other than a huge splash free agent signing or a trade, that's how it's going to have to be done.
Yep.
Because they do have to upgrade that other corner position.
Jeff in Madison Heights, I've fallen in love with Alex DeBrincat for sure. And the Pistons and Jim Harbaugh are tied for love lost. Harbaugh is the name I was thinking of, and it's interesting. It's a breakup, right? That is a breakup.
He broke up with you.
Exactly. But I almost feel like it was in some ways amicable because he brought home the national championship. So it's like the relationship ended on good terms?
What? I gave you the best year of your life, but now I want to see other people?
Yeah, but unlike an actual relationship where, and I mean, maybe you always want to continue with Jim Harbaugh moving forward, but it's different in sports than it is in real life. So,
is it? Sports is not real life, Doug.
It is not real life.
What?
Let me read a few more of these. Big Patriots fan here. I've fallen in love with the Detroit Lions and out of love with the Wolverine basketball team. Yeah, I figured Jawan and that might get some mention today. Wow, another game last night, uncompetitive, and they are in a world of hurt. That program. I'm not talking about for the season. I don't know what's next for that program. Coaching change is certainly on the table. Chris in Heartland says, Jahmyr Gibbs makes my sports heart go pitter-patter. And it's over between Troy Weaver and I. It's not me, it's him.
This is definitely you. I'm fine. You're the problem. The Gibbs one is a good one because, let's be honest, we're all kind of perplexed when it's positional value, right? And I know everything shouldn't be positional value with draft, but the running back at 12 shocked everyone and thought that was just too high for a running back.
I was shocked. I don't care about positional value.
I know, but other people did.
Yes, other people did. I've said over and over again, I think hard and fast rules for the draft is ridiculous because every draft is different. And the number one player at a position in one year might be the number 6 player at a position the next year. Some years there's 10 guys at a position worth getting. Some years there's none. And I would keep an eye on positional need, depending on where your team is and they're building or rebuilding or maintaining. I'm head over heels in love with Jaden Ivey. He's taken all the tough love from Monty in stride. No complaints, just hoops. I'm out of love with Troy Weaver. Pretty self-explanatory at this point. So there you go. All right. It's been a minute. And quite frankly, I've enjoyed the break. But my friends, it's time. Let it wash over you. We have had a chance to take a little bit of a break ourselves from mock drafts. But they're back, baby. And we're ready to lean into it. So we've got one here from a well-respected insider. We'll get to that name a little bit later on. And it's going to be different this year as we go through these mock drafts. Because with the Lions picking so late, it's going to be extraordinarily hard to identify the field of players that could be available to them at 29. But this is a great problem to have. Our football team is really good. It's really good. And part of that is the mock draft games that we play on the air aren't quite as accurate or meaningful. But undeterred, we move forward with a mock draft for the first time in the 2024 draft season. And we start at the top with the Chicago Bears selecting Caleb Williams, quarterback, USC. We're not going to do every pick. We're going to do important picks on our way down to the Lions pick at 29.
Remember when we used to do every pick?
Yeah, we used to do a lot.
Those days are done, I hope.
Yes. When we only had to get through like 6 picks before the Lions were up. At number 2, the Washington Commanders take Jaden Daniels, quarterback, LSU. At 3, the Patriots, Drake May, quarterback, North Carolina. The Cardinals at 4 go Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State. And the Chargers at 5 go Joel Alt, tackle, Notre Dame. Other picks that could be interesting to Detroit. Now, these are positions of need, local players, et cetera, et cetera. At 8, the Atlanta Falcons take Dallas Turner, edge rusher, Alabama. Latu, the edge rusher from UCLA, goes 9 to the Chicago Bears. Who else do we got here? Jared Verse, edge rusher from Florida State, goes 11 to the Minnesota Vikings. J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan, 12 to Denver. Defensive tackle Byron Murphy, Texas, goes to the Vegas Raiders at 13. Again, players of position of interest. Terrion Arnold, cornerback, Alabama, goes to Indianapolis at 15. Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback, Toledo, goes to the Rams at 19. Who do we got next here? Nate Wiggins, corner, Clemson, goes to Philly at 22. Enos Rakestraw Jr., cornerback, Missouri, goes to Houston at 23. Cooper DeJean, cornerback, Iowa, goes to Green Bay at 25. And the Lions are on the clock. They got 2 offensive linemen and a wide receiver that go right before the Lions pick. So it doesn't really take away from the field of players. Now, this show, Kang and I have shown tremendous discipline. We have not looked up who the Lions take at 29. So the field of players we have to choose from, and I'll explain in its entirety, are as follows. Michael Penix, quarterback, Washington. Save your hate text. Just hang on for a second. Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State. Edge rushers, Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac from Penn State. Defensive tackle, Jerjon Newton from Illinois and Tavondre Sweat from Texas. Cornerbacks, Kamari Lassiter and Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama. That is, and of course, and this is new to the Carson Anderson program, we're going to do this a lot more this year. Trade out of the first round. Trade out of the first round. These are your options. Why are we including the trade option this year? Well, do you remember the first name I said? Michael Penix, quarterback, Washington. Quarterbacks, late first round, are coveted because they get the 5th year of the contract. These are typically, not always, but the teams that are drafting at the bottom don't always have quarterback needs, so they are willing to take a quarterback. The Lions, I don't see them taking Penix. We just wanted to point out he's on the board to put the trade in play. because somebody may love Michael Penix. So if your choices are, I mean, you can draft him if you want, Penix, Keon Coleman, Chop Robinson or Adisa Isaac, edge rusher from Penn State, Jerjon Newton, defensive tackle from Illinois, Tavondre Sweat, defensive tackle from Texas, Kamari Lassiter, cornerback, Georgia, Akule McKinstry, cornerback for Alabama. You are on the clock. Who do you take? And again, we're including trade out of the first round, which buckle up, Detroit, because we might be sitting in downtown Detroit come draft night, drinking and partying and waiting for the pick, and then the Lions might not make that pick. And if the right trade offer comes along, I applaud them. It might not be popular in the moment that we wait around all night to see the pick, but I'm telling you, that's going to be in play, and don't be surprised. So, the way this works right now, who do you take? Text us at 248-539-9797. Please give a reason why. I mean, you can just give us a name, but give us a little bit of a reason why you take that player. And we'll get to the best text, read a whole bunch of them, then tell you who the pick is. Now, what's interesting is because we haven't looked at who the pick is going to be. Honestly, it could be a player I didn't mention. But we tried to put together a field of candidates and possibilities that Detroit fans would want. You can get your calls in on this as well. 248-539-9797. And coming up in the next half hour, we'll tell you who did the mock draft and who the pick is. Here on Carson Anderson, our first dip into the mock draft pool. Here on Valentine's Day 2024, 248-539-9797. Who do you want? We'll get to your answers coming up next. Here on 97.1, The Ticket. Hey, February is the month of love and chocolates, and Sarah Chevrolet Sterling Heights has sweet deals that you're going to love. As the number one volume Chevy dealer in Michigan, Sarah Chevrolet Sterling Heights has a huge inventory of popular models like the legendary Silverado or the award-winning Equinox arriving daily. Plus, Sarah Chevrolet Sterling Heights is showing their love for their community with their quarterly blood drive coming up on Friday, March 1st. Sarah Chevrolet Sterling Heights, 17.5, and Van Dyke in Sterling Heights. Call 87-SAY-SARAH. That's SAYSERRA, or go to saysarah.com. Together, let's drive. Doug Karsh, Gator out today. Hope to have the big fella back tomorrow. He'll be a little bit disappointed that he's not around for our first lap around the track of a mock draft, and we'll do this plenty leading up to the National Football League draft, which is held in Detroit this year. I don't know if you've heard, but in the meantime, as a well-respected insider, his mock, we gave you a list of names that'll be on the board at 29 in this scenario. And of course, all right, we get it. Why do you do this? Mocks are never right. No, but the scenarios get you prepared for what the decision might be like and what the field of players might look like. So we kind of know, you want to know what you're shopping from, right? And this gives you a better sense. And as you get closer, there's a little bit more clarity, but there's always surprises. There's an unpredictability. That's what makes it fun. These things also set expectations, which is really funny to me because those expectations might not be steeped in reality at all. So I try and take them all with a grain of salt, which is not always easy. But here we go. Here's what people want of the names that were available. And if you're just tuning in, we are including trade out of the first round because there is a quarterback that might be coveted on the board at 29, and that is Michael Penix. If you want to take Penix, go for it. But we think it's important to point out he was on the board because the Lions could be a trade back candidate. In fact, they're always kind of a trade back candidate with Brad Holmes, who said at his press conference 10 days ago or whatever it was, I think it was a week ago Monday, he said, yeah, we might trade out of it. Which kind of smiled because the draft being here, it's not what the fans are going to want to hear. But if it's the best thing for the team, nobody would be opposed to it, right? You can't be mad at him for trading out if trading out's a good deal for them. All right, so here's who's on the board again for people just joining us. Michael Penix, wide receiver Keon Coleman, edge rushers Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac, both from Penn State, defensive tackle Jerjon Newton from Illinois and Tavondre Sweat from Texas, Kamari Lassiter, the corner from Georgia, and Kool-Aid McKinstry, the corner from Alabama. Who would you take or trade out of the pick? I appreciate that some people say I would do this or that. You're on the clock, man. You have to make the decision. You don't get to say this or that. Pick one. We get a lot of this or that comes in. No, pick one. Here we go. Ryan writes in, give me Chop Robinson or trade out. First one I read. No. What do you do, Ryan? Sir Don writes in, what do we do with our hands if we have to wait for the 29th pick? I hear you. What do we do? It's going to be weird. Unnamed texter, Chop Robinson all day long. Next text. I'm taking Chop Robinson at 29. He's a stud. Him with Aiden will make the pass rush elite. Read in a car. If Kool-Aid is there, you have to draft him and let him have Kool-Aid on the back of his jersey. I don't know if you can do that.
I don't think there's one player in the league that has that. The NFL is very on top of that stuff, right?
Yep.
I mean, it might change, but as of right now, no one's got their first name or a nickname on the back.
Yeah.
Because I know Kool-Aid's not his actual first name. So.
No, it's not. Brandon in a mailbox says Kool-Aid need to keep the secondary. Make sure this need to shore up the secondary, which is bad. Thank you, Brandon. David in Chesterfield. I would take Chop Robinson in a heartbeat. He would be perfect opposite Hutch and would allow us to rush 4 and get good pressure.
I think if Gator were here right now, he'd be too distracted by the two nicknames of the players to even concentrate on who he wants in the mock draft.
It's an excellent point.
Doug, what's a better Doug, hold on. Sorry, Doug. But
yeah.
What do you think is a better nickname, Chop or Kool-Aid? Right?
Right, and I would play along when deep down I'm feeling frustration.
I'm sorry, Doug. What were we talking about again?
Totally.
Pretty cool nicknames, though. Chop and Kool-Aid.
Yeah, it is. Steven at work. I know we need defense, but man, Keon Coleman would be amazing in this offense.
That's the sexy pick.
I
right?
got to tell you, when I saw he was still on the board at 29, I'm like, all right, this feels like we're putting some sweet rims on our nice car.
Yeah, when we just need to take the car to
We
the
don't
grocery
need 'em.
store.
We don't need them.
No, it's not.
But man, I understand the allure. I wouldn't do it personally, but I knew somebody would, and it was Steven at work. Steve at work says the Lions pick at 29 should be Kool-Aid. Unnamed texter, Chop Robinson, a steal at 29, perfect compliment to Hutch. Matt and Holly, I'd pick up Chop Robinson to pair with Hutch. Two young edge guys sounds very appealing. Will, no-brainer. The Lions have to take Keon Coleman there. Having a big frame target for Goff to throw to improve an already elite offense. I knew we'd get takers. Michael writes in, Kool-Aid McKinstry. Need a cornerback to start or develop. He's a good athlete. Unnamed texter. Chop can address every other position of need with other picks but a defensive end like Chop. He will not be available later. Those are ticket texts from Twitter, from Pat. Trade out. Whoever wants Penix will give up a couple of 2s or a 1 next year and a 2 this year. I mean, probably. That's the thing, is quarterbacks get draft or get trade offers. And Penix is on the board here. Eric wrote in, please take Penix off the list. My God. I explained why we put him on the list. From Eulie John 1 on Twitter. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Alabama. From Gary, I'm going chopping. The ors. I'm going to skip over everybody who wrote this guy or that guy. CC Man 013. Tough choices, but give me Chop and Kool-Aid. Now I'm hungry. You can't have them both. Trade out of the first. Any one of those defensive players would be a big help, and at least one would be there. This is from the real JC. If you move back, depends how far you move back. But, I mean, moving back and still scoring one of those defensive players definitely would be a hell of a move. A lot of ifs, ors. No, I don't want ors. All right, here's one for Jerjon Newton for the win. Imagine if we got an edge and a defensive tackle capable of providing interior pressure. Might not need to invest as heavily in the secondary if you can apply pressure on a quarterback with 3 or 4 down linemen. Trade. Someone will come up for Penix to get that 5th-year option on him. Jeffrey writes in, Chop. From this is 709-65941 on Twitter. Sweat from Texas. I loved watching him play. One Hanuapu on Twitter, Of the players, I think I'd actually go Keon Coleman. The other top-tier wide receivers will be gone by 29. There's good depth at corner and defensive tackle in this draft, so you can still pick up studs at those positions later, and I think Chop is overhyped. Dude disappeared against good teams.
I think Chop is definitely a boomer bust. He intrigues me a lot.
Yep.
I think this guy is, like I said, he's going to be a spectacular pass rusher, or he's not going to rush the quarterback as well as some people hope, and he's not that good in the run. So then he just is kind of a waste of a first-round pick, which would, make him a bust. Doug, this goes back to the Keon Coleman thing, right? Because we got a few of those texts you read.
Yep.
Brad Holmes is going to do his draft board with all scouts, and he's going to have certain guys, like let's say 10 guys with first-round grades. If the last guy with the first-round grade happens to be like a Keon Coleman,
right?
I mean, at 29, he either trades out or he drafts the best guy on his board. Isn't that what he would do? I know it sounds crazy to draft on maybe a receiver, but
he would. I think he would do that. As history tells us, he would do that. We should not dismiss that as a possibility. It would be dismissing everything that he's done and everything that he's said. And if he's got Keon Coleman as the highest rated player on his board, and there's not a player particularly close, I think he's taking Keon Coleman. And in this scenario, he's on the board. I'll tell you what my pick is. Can you tell me who your pick is? And then we'll tell you who the pick is coming up today at 11:06. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket.
It is Pitchers and Catchers Day in Lakeland. Spring camp has officially begun for the Tigers. Also, their single-game tickets did go on sale at 10 a.m. for the upcoming season, so get on those if you can. Young Tigers star Spencer Torkelson also down there early with Riley Green, pumped to get things going. He joined 97.1 this morning, also revealed that he got engaged over the offseason, and he says he was all in on rooting for the Lions during their big run. Tork also said he's not going to pressure himself into building on that 30 home run season that he just had. He's just going to kind of take things as they come. If you can stomach it, the Kansas City Chiefs championship parade is running this morning after capturing back-to-back titles. Travis Kelce also admitted that his interaction with Coach Andy Reid was unacceptable during the game, pushing him over, getting in his face, saying if Reid punched him in the face at that moment, he would have understood and just ate it. Michigan State hoops hoping to take momentum from their win over ranked Illinois on the road with them to Happy Valley. They face Penn State, winners of 3 of 4, tip-off tonight at 6:30. And one more Pistons tip before the All-Star break, a 9 o'clock meeting with KD and the Phoenix Suns to finish off a back-to-back. The call is going to be right here on 97.1 The Ticket. I'll be with you on the 8:35 pregame show. Their next game after that won't be until Thursday, the 22nd. From the Corewell Health Sports Desk, I'm Chris Villar. For more, go to 97.1 The Ticket and Odyssey.com.
All right, this is fascinating. Our first dip in the pool of a mock draft, and what I'm seeing here is an interesting pattern. So we have this mock draft. We'll tell you who it's from. It's from Field Yates of ESPN. And as we went through it and worked our way down through the first 28 picks, we did not look at who the Lions took at 29 and looked at the field of players that were available. This could completely backfire because he might have taken a player that we didn't include in the field of players. So that's certainly possible. But we accumulated whose names were still out there and said, all right, here are the people's choices. Michael Penix, quarterback, Washington. Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State. Edge rushers, Chop Robinson and Nadisa Isaac, both from Penn State. Defensive tackle, Jerjon Newton from Illinois and Tavondre Sweat from Texas. Cornerback Kamari Lassiter from Georgia and Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama, or trade out of the pick. We asked people to give their impressions. We've taken feedback for the last 15 minutes. So we'll get to what the people have done. We'll get to what we have done, and we'll get to what the actual pick is here on Carson Anderson on 97.1 The Ticket. Start with this. If it's up to me, and these are the players available, I take Chop Robinson of Penn State. I think his talent, his ability to get up the field, his quickness is a unique skill set. I'm going to be interested to see what he weighs in at. Going to be interested to see a further evaluation, and I mean this sincerely. I have not watched a ton of draft preparation. I want to see how this guy is against the run and more than just getting up the field. But I, at this point, would take Chop Robinson. Edge rusher, Penn State. Kang, who would you take?
So Chop Robinson is very intriguing, like I said. I think he's definitely a boomer bust guy. He's got to prove to people, to coaches, to scouts that he can play all three downs, stop the run, not just rush the passer. Because if he can't rush the passer in the NFL and he can't stop the run, then he's useless, right? But I understand the intrigue there because he shows tons of flashes. You obviously watched a lot of Big Ten football, Penn State. You saw what he can do. With that being said, I'm going to pass on Chop Robinson. Okay. I'm going to go with Kool-Aid. They've done very well with Alabama players. Brett Holmes obviously talks to Nick Saban. He's at the last couple of years, and I think that he trusts Nick, and Nick will give him the true information, which I think will be that Kool-Aid's a dog. And they are very good. Obviously, the Lions, they've shown the last couple of years they can develop players. So he may not come in as polished as like a Devin Witherspoon, but I think he can get there. He's got the talent to get there. And if Nick Saban backs him up, I'm all for it. I think there's a real possibility that the Lions do trade out because it depends on how they look at the draft. If they only have 10, 15 first-round grade guys, you're at 29 now. Those guys all might be gone, right? Mm-hmm. And then I think Brett Holmes says, I'm out of here. But if he stays, go Kool-Aid.
Well, that's really interesting, and I guess I should say typical based upon what the people have done because the people have split the vote. 32% of you have said Chop Robinson, and 32% of you have said Kool-Aid McKinstry. Split the vote right down the middle. Now, obviously, that doesn't add up to 100%. There were other things selected. Distant third, trade with 12% of the vote, tied with Jerjon Newton, 12% of the vote. So, edge rusher and corner split at the top, tied for the first spot. Trade and defensive tackle tied for third. So, here we go. I mentioned earlier that it was Field Yates mock draft. And we took a bit of a risk because we've never done it this way before, but they've never been picking at 29. And since Gator wasn't here, neither you nor I saw the pick and pooled the field of players we thought likely would be on the board and likely taken. And the pick is in. With the 29th pick, the Detroit Lions select Darius Robinson, edge rusher, Missouri. Damn it! All right, so he's a highly regarded edge rusher, that's for sure. And here's what Field Yates writes. Here's one of my favorite player-team fits. As Robinson feels like, not Chop Robinson, as Robinson feels like the kind of brute force player the Lions crave on their roster. After 8.5 sacks in 2023, he would give Detroit a big boost on the edge opposite Aiden Hutchinson and could feast on favorable matchups while teams allocate resources to Hutch on every snap. Moreover, he's a converted defensive tackle who can kick down inside and wreak havoc when lined up over guards or centers. So I don't know, did this whole thing backfire because it was somebody we didn't expect?
It was a Robinson.
It was a Robinson, and it was an edge rusher.
That's right.
And by the way, this is more typical of how drafts work. As you get to the pick, especially late, and you're like, wait, what?
That's exactly how the draft works for us. We're like, well, who? Him? No.
All right, so he did go edge rusher. Rounding out the first round, at 30, the Ravens take Kamari Lassiter, cornerback from Georgia, who got very little love in this whole thing, this whole exercise. 31, San Francisco takes Amarius Mims, tackle from Georgia. And with the last pick of the draft, Kansas City takes Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver, Texas. I did not love his body language, for whatever that's worth. So that means we go to the second round. It's not a 2-rounder. But all those guys we mentioned, Keon Coleman's on the board, Chop Robinson's on the board, Adisa Isaac's on the board, Jerjon Newton's on the board, Tavondre Sweat's on the board, and Kool-Aid McKinstry on the board going to the second round. Which now begs the question. I mean, there's two things about this. One is trading back.
That's right.
This is really makes trading back appealing. That one of those teams that covets a quarterback that might have a pick at the beginning of the second round would give you that pick and something else to move into the first. And the Lions with 2 second-round picks would have quite the pool of players to choose from. Now, the reason we don't tell you what happened in the mock is because Brad Holmes will not know at 29 who's going 30, 31, 32. And now that we look at it, that like 7 of our guys are going into the second round. How much would you love to have an early second-round pick? So let's say New England doesn't get their quarterback at 3. Do they want Penix? Let's say the Commanders trade out at 2. Do they want Penix? Does Jim Harbaugh love Penix from the game? And no, he wouldn't draft him in the second round. Is Tennessee? Yeah. The Giants go Penix at 39. Would they want to move into the first round? Interesting, isn't it?
You got to be prepared for all scenarios.
You do, and trading back feels like if this plays itself out, would be the number one option. However, we don't have the knowledge of knowing that only one of the guys that was on the board goes the rest of the first round. Now, it is only 3 picks. All right, 248-539-9797. If you want to talk about it, it's Field Yates Mock. It's available on ESPN, and it's our first lap around the mock draft track here in 2024. Draft is coming to Detroit. Going to be really interesting. Your reactions. We'll get to some Red Wing talk today at 11:30. Pitchers and catchers report we'll talk about in the noon hour. 248-539-9797. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Hey, don't have plans for Valentine's Day? No problem. It's Hump Day. And Twin Peaks is spicing up bourbons and brews with Sweetheart Week. Get out for lunch, skip work altogether to experience the hottest food deals, and Twin Peaks girls do it today. Ladies are dressed for the red carpet in their hottest red and pink lingerie, serving up awesome drink specials and even something sweet like the Peaks Brownie Sundae. If you're in between 5 and 7, they're sampling up favorites like the house beers, Deep Eddy Ruby Red, Screwball, and more. Experience it all with wall-to-wall TVs showing all your favorite sports action. They got all the pro basketball, pro hockey games ready to go for you. And we're just days away from UFC 298. Alexander Volkanovski is back in the octagon to take on undefeated Topuria. Get in early and get your front row seat for all the knockout action. To find a location nearest you and to be made aware of all their specials, go to TwinPeaksRestaurant.com. That's TwinPeaksRestaurant.com. Twin Peaks eats, drinks, and scenic views. We'll do this quite a bit between now and the draft. It's an interesting exercise. The first one we did, Field Yates, ESPN. We didn't know who the pick was. We looked at the first 28, showed tremendous pre-show discipline, and did not look at who went 29. And it turns out we got the field of play. We had a field of players, and the pick was somebody who was not in the field of players, but it is a local kid who went to Missouri. Darius Robinson, who played at Canton, was the pick, edge rusher from Missouri. And what's interesting about this is that a lot of the guys that we are eyeing end up being available in the second round, which really, I hope, maybe crystallizes what I'm thinking today in our first go around with this. Trading back would be freaking awesome. Because, I mean, the people love Chop Robinson at 29, who's on the board. People love Kool-Aid McKinstry, corner from Alabama, who's on the board. A little bit less love, but love for Jerjon Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois, who's on the board. Trading back, I think people have to understand, in spite of the fact that the draft is going to be held here in Detroit, Trading back, pretty attractive, isn't it? Isn't it? And, we got a couple months to do this, but keep in mind, the party's going to be going on all night, and then Brad Holmes, don't be surprised if he moves out of his pick at 29.
Yeah, trading back is very intriguing, but you got to be sure you have a bunch of guys that available because, your guy might be taken.
Yep.
Right? Because you could either take him at 29 or take that chance and go back and, in the early second round and hope he's there. Because when I rewatch the Inside the Den and the draft and all that stuff,
People don't know what that is. That is the Lions produce this. It's behind the scenes where they have everybody in the draft room mic'd up. They got mics everywhere, and you get to see a lot of behind the scenes stuff. It's really, really good. And it comes out, I don't know, a month, 2 months after the draft comes out, and it's, an hour long. And it's every pick, and they're talking about the picks before they're made and after they're made and show their interview process. Sorry to interrupt. But the Inside the Den is really, really cool. And you rewatched it recently, knowing what we know about the four rookies they took with their first 4 picks and how good they were.
Yeah, they give you a seat inside the war room, a place we would all love to be. I know you, me, and Gator would love to just sit there. You go ahead and tape my mouth shut. Let me sit there and just listen and watch what goes on.
Yep.
And of course, it's edited, and they like you said, they release it after the draft. But when they were releasing it, they released it. And I watched it again. They traded back out of 7 to 12.
Yep.
And they sweated that Jahmyr Gibbs. They wanted Jahmyr Gibbs there. They sweat. He's there. They were happy. That's when he accidentally. Holmes accidentally elbowed Campbell in the stomach area.
Right.
And so
they took a chance.
Yeah.
And it paid dividends for them. So. Don't be surprised if they go to that well again. Now, what do? We came up with a list of players that we covet, and we threw the quarterback on there, Michael Penix, because he could be the player that teams in the second round trade up to take. I didn't mention this, but in this mock, take a look and see, and just double check. Bo Nix goes at 20. So the quarterback field is thinning out. The first 3 picks are all quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. Then you've got, so it's 3 there. You got JJ going to Denver at 12. And then Bo Nix to the Steelers at 20. So that's 5 quarterbacks. So who in the second round is going to be, damn, we need to make a move on our quarterback? And might go after Michael Penix. Now, you might not love Penix, and maybe the NFL won't love Penix. But a quarterback, I mean, if you're a fan of trading out, you want as many quarterbacks to drop and be on the board. Well, you don't want them all, but you want a quarterback option, a coveted quarterback option to be on the board at 29. Feedback has come in to this relative to the results. Darius Robinson being the pick at 29. Saab in Lake Orion writes in, knowing how Brad Holmes operates, I don't think any of our guesses will be the pick. Yep. Guys, the ideal trade-out situation, in my opinion, would be trade back a few spots into the second round. Take Devondre Sweat or whatever additional picks you can obtain by trading back. Chop Robinson seems like a clone of Betts, who we just signed as a free agent. That's from an unnamed texter. Yes, Matthew Betts, who led the CFL in sacks last year for the British Columbia Lions, signed with the Detroit Lions yesterday. Right now, if he were available, if Matthew Betts were available in the draft, I doubt he would be considered in the same level as Chop Robinson. I love your optimism that he is a clone, but do you think Matthew Betts would be a fringe first-round pick right now? I know people love turning over every stone and love the idea of going to another league and see the flashy number of, I think it was 18 sacks or 16 sacks, but be a little bit careful of your expectation there. Derek in Washington Township. Hi, guys. Is the draft normally this close to the end of the season? Well, not ours.
No, we're not used to this, Doug.
No. I will admit, it does. I mean, what is the date? It's April 25th. it does feel like, relatively speaking, right around the corner.
No, but by now we would have done, what, 2, 3 mock drafts? I don't know.
These,
you know,
yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, this is new for us, man.
Yep. 248-539-9797. Let's go to Tim. You're on 97 on the ticket. Hi, Tim.
Hey, guys.
What's up?
I think I'd keep the pick, and I'd get me a stud offensive lineman. Because I know we got good players, but, you know, Decker's getting up there in age. What if we don't have Jackson coming back? I think I'd really invest, even though probably the biggest thing is another edge rusher, but I mean, they're trying to do things there. I think I would go after a stud offensive lineman to put in my back pocket.
So I'm intrigued by this. So you would take your first round pick and basically shelf something for it that you're not going to use for a couple years instead of getting something that you'd rather use right now. Why?
Because you're gonna need that person in a year or so, okay? And you can never have enough good offensive linemen.
All of that is true, but what if? But can you get away with this defense? You know it's not what?
I know it's not the norm. You know, everybody wants to go for that stud rusher or whatever, but I think you're better off offensive linemen pan out more than defensive players, I believe. You know, defensive line.
There is some data on how hard it is to project defensive linemen, and it is tough. But let me start with this, okay? Brad Holmes might do that. Brad Holmes absolutely might do that. Best player available. We had him ranked as the 4th, 5th best player in the draft. We got him at 29. We think he's the best player that was on the board by far. Yeah, we know he's a tackle, and we got 2, but he was the best player available. So let's talk that. I'm not going to poo-poo it. I'm going to find it hard to believe that there won't be a defensive player that they have highly rated on the board at 29. Highly rated. And if you got a player ranked as the 12th best player and he's an offensive lineman, and a player ranked as the 15th best player and he's a defensive end, I hope they take the defensive end. I hope they take the defensive end.
That's where you find out what need and talent, right?
Yep. You find out about your commitment to the philosophy.
To the board.
Yep. And the philosophy has gotten them here. Once you're here, a step away from the Super Bowl and 2 steps away from Lombardi, do you shift the philosophy? You don't completely scrap what you've done, but maybe you aren't quite as beholden to best player available. Don't you have to modify your approach a bit when you're this close?
One would think, Doug, but I swear, if anyone's committed to their process, I feel like it's Brad Holmes. And he tells us without telling us, like, they want football players. They don't look at position. Not everyone can be a Detroit Lion. They're going to draft a DT in the second round, and if there's a DT available in the third round that they have rated high enough, they'll draft him too, right? They draft football players. So if a guard or a tackle, I don't know, offensive lineman's there at 29, and he's by far their best player on their board, I don't see how he passes him up because of his philosophy.
I know, I hear you, and I think what I'm doing is a dangerous, probably ill-advised thing to do, but if he is that committed to his philosophy, I question Brad Holmes. Now I'll duck for cover. 248-539-9797. More of your phone calls and feedback coming up. Red Wings played and lost last night. Talk about the game coming up. And what's next for this team? It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Doug Harsh, Gator out today. 248-539-9797. Okay, so our first look at a mock draft. It was Field Yates, ESPN, and we had a field of players, and it was kind of an impressive field, to be honest with you, that were still out there. And we just had a call from a fan who said they'd go O-line, and just their belief that they think they're easier to project and it's something they're going to need. And he would take a pick and put it on the shelf for a couple of years and hope that person is ready to replace Decker or Ragnar or whomever down the road. And that would be, we shouldn't discount it because Brad Holmes might do it. In the field of players we presented, we included Keon Coleman, the wide receiver from Florida State. And he didn't get one vote. He got a few votes. Finished fifth in this thing, but I could see it happening. If, again, he is the highest player available, in spite of all their needs on defense. At the end of the show yesterday, I brought up if they were to basically bring back the entire offense, re-sign Jonah Jackson, re-sign Josh Reynolds, bring back the entire offense as is, bring back Graham Glasgow, and then just give up the entire draft to defense, which this is kind of fantasy thing that guys in my chairs and fans talk about. But at the end of the day, teams almost never do this and just say, we're going to dedicate our whole draft to defense. I would argue that this would be a good year to do it. But there's nothing about Brad Holmes that tells you that's what he'll do and say we're committing to just this side of the ball because they want football players. And they kind of are in a position be damned thing. We're going to find out how committed they are to the philosophy this year because their needs are fewer, their resources are fewer. They don't have a ton of cap space to go outside the organization. They'll have some, and they'll certainly sign guys from outside the organization, and they aren't drafting from his favorable position. But we know Holmes covets the picks and has belief in their system, and their system has got them where they are. I'm just going to be intrigued to see how committed they are to this. With that said, Keon Coleman, we put him on the list for this very reason. And if he is the pick at 29, I understand it from great player, and my God, the offense is going to be ridiculous, and I think it's more important to have a great offense and a great defense in the NFL in 2024. Now, would I do it? I just had the choice to do it, and I didn't. But I probably wouldn't lose my you-know-what. Now, offensive line with good defensive players available, that would make me a little bit more uncomfortable. Because Keon Coleman, if they're drafting Keon Coleman, I think Keon Coleman's impacting the 2024 season. If they draft an offensive lineman, I don't think he's impacting the 2024 season. Unless they let Jonah Jackson and Graham Glasgow walk. Or one of them walk. Then I could see an interior offensive lineman coming in and maybe impacting the 2024 season. 248-539-9797. We'll get back to your phone calls in a moment. I did want to mix in some Renwick talk. Look, they played at Edmonton, been doing this for years. I'm watching whatever team it is that's building and trying to take that next step, whatever it is, from a below 500 team to 500, from 500 to playoffs, a wild card, from wild card to division champion, and then, legitimate title contender. Whatever that next step is, you're always looking to identify that moment where you feel comfortable in saying they've taken that next step. This schedule coming out of the All-Star break felt like an opportunity, and still, I'm not going to completely discount it, but they come out and they win in overtime against the best team in the West, Vancouver. Then they're taking on Edmonton they won 17 in a row before dropping 2 of 3. Very hot team and definitely a contender in the West. And I'm like, boy, you really send a message. If you go Vancouver, Edmonton sweep, and then they play at Vancouver tomorrow night and win them all, we can maybe identify as this the time the Red Wings have taken that next step. They get housed last night in the third period. They give up 8 goals. Wasn't their best defensive effort. Husso gets hurt. Alex Lyon comes in. Wasn't great. I mean, right now, they have to be wondering, how do they keep the puck out of their own net with this personnel? I don't know that they do. Is Simon Edvinsson ready? Are they going to trade from outside the organization? I mean, it's not reacting simply to this game. I mean, if you're looking at them, all the defensive metrics, average to below average defensive team, how do you improve there? Probably the most realistic thing is somebody from within house gets a first look. Now, they get it before the trade deadline. I don't know. I'd love to see it so it can help you make a plan. But trade deadline's coming up 3 weeks from Friday, I believe it is. So they got some time. But it would be good to see improvement to the blue line to go with a team that's been pretty good offensively. 248-539-9797. And there was this last night. Sprong taking the stick to the face of Penei Sewell. That was unfortunate. And we've all kind of got that story of in a celebration you hurt somebody else. Like Brad Holmes hurt Dan Campbell last year in the draft. I was like, that's a high stick. Oh, wait, it was his teammate. 248-539-9797. Red Wing fans, if you want to get involved, let's get back to your phone calls. Keith, you're next on 97.1 The Ticket. What's up, Keith?
If I was the Lions, I would trade with Carolina because they don't have a first pick. Get their draft and let them get a first pick. Get the more drafts in the second round. I'll go sign the guy out of Kansas City, the defensive back Sheed, and then I'm going after the boy from Texas, the defensive tackle. And I'm going defense because they got enough weapons. They got wide receivers to catch the football. They got a running back, and I add a lineman to that process. Other than that, I'm going defense because that's the Lions' weakness is in that secondary in the middle of the interior. That's where I would be going.
Well, let's start with this. The first thing you said was trade with Carolina. Carolina sits there with the first pick in the second round.
And we get their second and four. Yeah,
is there a player at 29 that they don't think will be there at 33, or a player at 29 that they want to have that fifth year that they want to move into the first round and do it? If the Lions had that opportunity to move back to 33 and add another draft pick this year, I'd do it. And we just got to hope whatever scenario plays itself out that opens that up. Because Carolina may be sitting there when the Lions are on the clock at 29, Carolina might have 5 players they love, in which case they can sit tight and don't have to give anything up. But if they really are coveting a single player, they might get aggressive and move into the first round. I want to see how many picks they have total. They only have 6. So would they want to? Is it worth it for them to move up and then only have 5 draft picks? Probably not. They'd probably want to give you a future pick, but I don't think it's a terrible idea, Keith. The Snead thing, even if they didn't have their own guys to sign, Snead would take up a good chunk of their cap space. He will be, if he gets to free agency, he's going to get a massive offer from somebody, and so yeah, that would be a huge score. And I talked about it yesterday. Sure, give it a shot, but it's probably not realistic. But
they got to win. They have to. This is Super Bowl right now. Anything other than that, you're wasting time. Go for the Super Bowl next year.
Right. I'm saying if you don't have the money and others do, it's not that they wouldn't want him. It's that he's going to be one of the most coveted free agents out there. It would take a lot of restructuring of contracts. I mean, what you got to figure about players from Kansas City that become free agents and decide, and if they decide they don't want to score the highest contract, won't they re-sign with Kansas City? Like if they decide winning's important to them, we could sit here and say, oh, he'll want to come to Detroit because winning's important to him. If winning's important to them, they'll stay in Kansas City, most likely. I mean, I don't know any of these guys. I don't know Chris Jones or L'Jarius Sneed personally, but if winning's important to them, unless they hate it in Kansas City for some reason, don't like Andy Reid, don't like Steve Spagnuolo, wouldn't they just stay in Kansas City?
Yeah, but if they have confidence in themselves and the new team they're going to, they can go, it's not locked in Kansas City's going to win it next year.
No, it's not.
I mean, look at Tyreek Hill. He won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs and ended up going to Miami where he thought they have a good chance as well. Got his money, got his bag, and thought he was going to a very good competitive team as well. Snead and Jones could do the same thing. You want both in a perfect world.
If you're Kansas City.
Yeah. But if you or I, maybe we would take less money to stay where we're at in a good situation. But everyone is different, right?
Yep.
I think we just spoke about Brad Holmes, and does he stray from his draft philosophy? Does he stray from his off-season, free agent trade philosophy where he hasn't made that big splash, And if he were to sign a L'Jarius Sneed, that would be something we haven't seen before. Has he been doing this because of necessity, the way the Lions were when he took over? Do things change, like you said? I don't know. It's going to be curious. Judging by his press conference, I don't think he strays too much from what he's already been doing here.
Probably not. Yeah, I mean, go for it, sure. Make the phone call. I don't suspect. Like we said yesterday, we took the guardrails down and we wandered off in the wild blue yonder. I don't know that he'll be available to the Lions. 248-539-9797. Joe, you're next. What's up, Joe?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call. I like this conversation. It's later than normal for us Lions fans, but still enjoying it. Hey, I'm looking at the Lions for next year and looking at the schedule and the teams that we're going to be playing. And we're not going to surprise anybody like we did this year. So the strength of our team has been the offense. So we need to revamp the defense. And I don't know if we can focus on getting veterans that would want to come here in free agency and then use the draft as fill-ins for offensive line, maybe another wide receiver. And I just wanted to get your opinion on the strength that we need to focus on. Revamping the defense first with veterans, since the teams that we're going to be playing in next year are a lot more mobile quarterbacks, and then use the draft to fill in for future needs, since we may not be able to sign all our offensive weapons.
Look, I don't know how much shopping they're going to do outside their organization. They're going to do some. I would guess that there's going to be a free agent starter somewhere on defense next year. If you take
all the rumors,
if you take Brad Holmes at his word, he's draft develop guy. He is going to count on Broderick Martin. He's going to count on Josh Paschal. He's going to count on guys that they've drafted taking big steps forward. Probably more. What you brought up would be great if you have sort of endless bank, but the clues that they have sent out is that they're going to be more than likely to bring back their own guys and do minimal external additions. But I would suspect there'll be a free agent starter somewhere on the defense. You said guys, so how many free agent starters are you trying to sign defensively?
I think maybe two like a defensive tackle and maybe another linebacker. Anzalone and Campbell, and I don't know with Barnes. We need somebody that can go side to side as quickly as possible. And I don't know if Campbell is gotten there. Maybe he'll get better in a second year. But I think secondary, we can find somebody if we're developing. Brian Branch is going to have a good year. We don't know what we're going to do with Mosley. CJ may come back at less money. So I think the linebacker and defensive tackle, Broderick Martin, doesn't come through, or if we keep Levi, I think that's it. And, this guy that we got from Canada, maybe we use him as a linebacker. I don't know if he could play linebacker or rush end and take Pascal's place. And if Houston comes around, wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not counting on a lot of shopping in free agency. Maybe one. You want two? I guess two's not out of the realm of possibility. The indications, the smoke screens the smoke flares out of Allen Park don't seem to indicate that they're going to do much of that, but maybe they will. Maybe they will. 248-539-9797. We'll get to more of your phone calls coming up. Also, Kang's got a challenge starting tonight. It's starting tonight, right? I'm sure many dads out there had to deal with this. We'll get to that today at 12:20. Some Tiger talk mixed in the noon hour as well. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. So, couple things here. 248-539-9797 is always the phone number. Gator out sick today. It's the Carson Anderson program. First mock draft, Field Yates put it together, and at 29, the pick was in. It was Darius Robinson, edge rusher out of Missouri. We're not nearly as far down the mock draft wormhole as we typically are in the middle of February, which is refreshing. Thank you, Detroit Lions. Robinson is a local kid, Southfield, Canton High School, also a captain at Missouri, and that always is something that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell love. So this very well could be a pick, a position of need, very talented player, and something that would make some sense. We did not include him in our field of players, which was we didn't know. We looked at the first 28 picks, showed a tremendous show discipline, didn't look at 29. Our field of players included Keon Coleman and Michael Penix, Chop Robinson, Adisa Isaac, Jerjon Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois, Tavondre Sweat, defensive tackle from Texas, the two corners, one from Georgia and one from Bama, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and trading out, which is certainly in play. As we get closer to the draft, there's going to be two players that I'm the early going, I kind of hope fall to the Lions. One is Latu, the edge rusher from UCLA, who I'm always leery of, like Pac-12 defenders, and I want to get into the wormhole a little bit to see how he did against the better offensive tackles he faced. And Quinyon Mitchell, the corner from Toledo, and again, find out against the best, most talented players. You got the combine coming up, which will be intriguing, and I actually have to revisit Senior Bowl stuff because I wasn't all over it this year. JMoney1339 on Twitch writes, disagree, Doug. There are still pieces to add to this offense. Need a big-sized wide receiver or O-line depth in this draft. Also would argue a late pick, a tight end like the giant tight end out of Minnesota or Eric All. Well, let me start with this. Yeah, it'd be nice, and yet all those needs to me pale in comparison to their defensive needs. Like you say, they need a big-sized wide receiver. If this offense was good enough to win the Super Bowl, I'd be nice to add that, but do they need that? Not nearly as much as they need a starting corner, another edge rusher, another defensive tackle. Offensive line depth, I mean, it'd be nice, but they took the kid out of William and Mary last year, and they had Osika fill in admirably. They might need a starting offensive lineman depending on what they do as free agency. Brevin Spanford, the big tight end out of Minnesota, he's a lot like Brock Wright, so it depends on the Brock Wright injury and what they bring back. Brock Wright was a big target without big numbers. And I think Brevin Spanford had a setback year last year, but let me go look at that. But he would be somebody who would be on the radar for sure.
Yeah, I think it's the question, we always ask is how much do you blend, the need with the talent, right? With what's available. And I think Brad Holmes is honestly just a man of his word, and he stays true to himself and his philosophy, which is, need is there, but it's not the top of the list. He's just drafting football players, drafting talent. And, of course, there is a point where, Doug, I don't think they're drafting Michael Penix at 29. But other than that, we all think they need a corner and need an edge rusher. But if his board lines up and it's Keon Coleman is far and away the best talent left and he's not trading out, I think Keon Coleman would be the pick. I'm just using him as an example, but – right?
Yeah, dude. I'm this close to saying they're taking Keon Coleman.
Very early here.
Yeah.
But I think the draft ninja he ends up like my very early pick right now and on Valentine's Day is he trades out.
Yep.
And he gets more picks.
I agree. Brock Wright, this is funny. Brock Wright, 6'4", 255 out of Notre Dame. His junior year, 45 catches, no touchdowns. His senior year, 21 catches, no touchdowns. Had half as many catches between his junior and senior year. Brevin Spanford, bigger, 6'7", 270. His junior year, 45 catches. Brock Wright had 45 catches. His senior year, 25 catches. Brock Wright, 21 catches. Yes, Brevin Spanford is the next Brock Wright. So my man kind of nailed it. He fits the mold of a late round addition. That's funny. Didn't realize that. I knew that there was a step back for Wright and for Brevin Spanford. I didn't realize how similar it was. A lot of that has to do with your quarterback too. So you can't say that means they're the same person. 248-539-9797. Carson Anderson, 97 won the ticket. All right. Interesting from Nicole Auerbach, reporter, college reporter for The Athletic. There's a quote here from Ward Manuel about Juwan Howard. And don't be surprised. Here is what he just said about Juwan Howard. According to Nicole Auerbach, quote, let me make sure it's a legit account. Yes. I've not really thought about any changes in our men's basketball program at this time. I want to support Juwan. Okay. So you shouldn't be surprised, right? You shouldn't be surprised. We say this all the time. I go back to like when we were talking about Brad Ausmus. As long as somebody is still employed, you say everything you can to support them as to not undermine them. If you undermine them, you may as well fire them. And there's really not much of a benefit to firing him now, but it seems to me like a change is quite possible, if not likely, given the way this team, it's not only that they're just losing, it's some of these games, and recently, not even competitive. Very disappointing. 248-539-9797. Got some Tiger stuff we'll get to next hour. Also a challenge for our guy Kang. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. It's Carson Anderson on a Wednesday, 97.1 The Ticket. Doug Karsh, Gator out sick today. It's Carson Anderson here on 97.1 The Ticket. Great to be with you on a Wednesday. Happy Valentine's Day. Open the show by asking you, who in Detroit sports in the last year have you fallen in love with? Who in Detroit sports in the last year have you fallen out of love with? 248-539-9797. Give us your text right now. Who would be number one on the list in the last year? You say, you know what, a year ago I didn't love this guy. I love him now. A year ago I loved this guy. I'm not so sure anymore. Would you put at the top of the list for either one or the other or both? 248-539-9797. A lot of popular names getting a lot of votes on this. And before the end of the show, we'll tell you which ones were most popular. We'll tell you which ones got most of the mentions for Detroit falling in love with and falling out of love with certain guys. Red Wings lose last night. It is not a crisis because they lose a hockey game. Does suck to give up 8 goals. Every time Alex Lyon looks maybe not great, you worry because he's never been this in his career and at his age. Look, the light can go on with goalies. I had somebody in the game tell me once it's not unusual for goalies to have long runways. So, the fact that he has started more games this year than any time in his career. Now, he came in off the bench. Husso got the start and suffered another lower body injury. But still, I gave up 8 goals. Not good. But, turn it around tomorrow night in Vancouver and put together back-to-back wins against the top team in the West. That would be awesome. DeBrincat broke out of his recent slump, if you will, and scored a goal. Looking better of late. But did not get the job done on the defensive end. Rebound goals, bad zone coverage, and a little bit of McDavid being McDavid. He had 6 assists. So there you go. There is that. And keep an eye on them, that game tomorrow night in Vancouver. Pistons lose on the road in LA. They were down 71-48 at the half. I admit I didn't make it deep into the night watching that one. And Michigan basketball blasted at Illinois. It's hard to escape that Juwan is probably in trouble here. Ward Manuel said he's given no thought. He's supporting Juwan. In a quote that he gave to Nicole Auerbach at this hour, which is, what you do, whether you're considering a change or not, because as long as the guy's your coach, you don't want to undermine him. But if you do undermine him, you may as well move on from him and just fire him. We also had that first mock draft of the year that came out. Well, that's not true. The first one we did. We've had the luxury of avoiding them because we had a football team worth talking about. It was Field Yates on ESPN.com who has the Lions at 29. We gave you the field of players, and it turns out, because we didn't look who they had him draft. We went through the first 28 picks and said, okay, these players are available. Turned out we probably should have had Darius Robinson on there. We didn't. He's the edge rusher out of Missouri. In part, I have to admit, we did it because we didn't know how much fans here watch Missouri, but he is a local kid, Canton High School, and captain, which is a big deal to this group. So we probably shouldn't dismiss the possibility of Darius Robinson being a pick. And he was a pick at 29. But guys that fall out of the first round include Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac from Penn State, the edge rushers. Jerjon Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois. Tavondre Sweat, another DT from Texas. And Kool-Aid McKinstry, the corner from Alabama. And Keon Coleman was on the board. And feels like a luxury pick, something, boy, with all their defensive needs, would they? And I would have to say, there's nothing about Brad Holmes that tells us he wouldn't. Nothing. So that's something to keep in mind. Wide receiver out of Florida State and a player that obviously some familiarity with. The transfer from Michigan State, 6'4" beast of a wide receiver.
Yeah, and if you trust Brad Holmes and his word, they just draft football players and philosophy. So it doesn't have to be Keon Coleman. It could be any offensive player or any player at all. Because if he values that player as a first-round grade or a Detroit Lion type player, or he's just too good to pass up, he will draft him. And that's how he's been doing it. He's been telling us this. They draft football players. They don't necessarily look at position, right?
Yep.
And so you know how everyone says, like, on the football field, Dan Campbell, you got to be aware of a fake at all times. 4th and 7, he might go for it. You just don't know. Be on alert. I think in the draft side with Brad Holmes, with other GMs, I think you got to be on alert with the Lions. You don't know who they're going to draft.